Hello, my name is Ben, and welcome to the first session of the Pathfinder Chronicle. I've recently started up a new Pathfinder campaign, and I haven't DM'd for quite a long time. I'd say about 3 or 4 years now. And I realised I was a bit rusty, and I should probably actually use the lessons that I've both learned in the past and the ones that I'm going to relearn with my new group as we go along. For now, let's just get into the first session, shall we? The nation of Smiths, Alu, the Dwarven nation. It is a hard place to live, and no wonder the dwarves like it better when they live underground. A valley nation, the land is hard to farm and graze. Travel across the valleys is long and dangerous. Magical beasts roam the lands, and there are numerous places where someone does something people would rather not think about. Despite it all, it is a vibrant place. Very green, very windy, very beautiful. Most of the time. To the northeast of the capital, it is currently snowing. A cart travels down the muddy, slurry road slowly, the horse pulling the cart shivering slightly. The dwarf driving the cart grumbles mostly to himself as the snow slowly falls around them, softly muting all other noise in the area. He looks back at the two people on his cart and grumbles. "Well, I didn't expect you two to be the only ones to come pick up the old bastard. I'd have expected at least some dwarf to show a bit of courage and give something back to his culture. Not that I don't understand the aversion to this man." The old dwarf was, of course, talking about the old man, the White Smith, a legendary figure in dwarven culture passed down from Whitesmith to Whitesmith, and a massive figure of controversy, as the current role was held by a human. In the cart itself, 2 passengers, a halfling rogue covered in leather clothes, animal hair-filled boots, and a hood, a crossbow strapped to his back. The other passenger appears to be human, and is the general shape of one, but with all the armour on them, you would be challenged to find out who they truly were. They wrapped the cloak around them, and brought their hands together in a silent prayer. The cart continued down the road, the passengers making light conversation till they ran into the burned-down village slowly being covered in snow. Keely, the dwarf, got out and walked around the village, the others in the cart getting out and looking around with him. The village was deserted, most of its structures completely burned down, and the only occasional wall or blackened pillar standing out in the snow like a sore thumb. There were no bodies. Keely believed that this could only spell trouble, and started to move towards the cart before the rogue and paladin stopped. They listened. On the horizon they could hear the yapping of dogs. Quickly they hid and waited. It turned out to not be dogs, but instead hyenas, trained hyenas. Their targets sprinted into the burned-down village, slipping and sliding on the snow. A saurian, or a lizard man for those less traditional. And over 7 foot tall, he ran from his pursuers, the hyenas faster than him, and just in the distance, they could see a gnoll barking orders. Keely was having none of this and immediately ran back to the cart. The paladin and the rogue quickly agreed and ran after the dwarf. The lizard man, spotting them, running after them as well. Hyenas, however, are faster than any of them, and were quickly gaining. The lizard man dove around the wall and into the white snow, his scales shifting as their chromatic nature kicked in, a 24 on stealth. The hyenas lost sight of him completely and instead switched targets, the cart and the people attempting to get onto it. The first hyena missed, smashing its head into the cart but stopping anyone from getting on. The other missed but stumbled into the paladin. The paladin's turn. The battle axe came down and instantly cut off one of the feet of the hyena attacking them. The animal squealed and turned away from the fight. The halfling rogue, however, did not fare so well and completely missed his target with his sickle. The lizard man remained in stealth, and it was now the hyena's turn. The second one hobbled away, but the first one savaged the rogue, instantly flooring him, taking the rogue down to 0. The paladin didn't notice, and instead took down the one hobbling away whilst the Saurian emerged from stealth, and smashed his trident down on the hyena whose attention now turned to him. The gnoll, far behind them, started to run away as the hyena attacked the lizard man, but its bite raked off the natural scales. The paladin finally arrived with the big fuck-off battle axe and brought it down on the hyena. The battle was over, but the fleeing gnoll was definitely a problem. Out of range of his bow, the reptilian nevertheless tried. The saurian nocked an arrow, focused, his muscles bristling as he tensed, the falling snow but a part of the world, and fired. Natural 20. The lizard man eventually walked up to the gnoll, whose movements had been reduced to a mere 10 foot. The gnoll pleaded for his life and told the lizard man where the slaving party would be going. The rest of them had turned to raiding, knowing full well the hyenas could catch up to the lizard man. The lizard man thanked him for the info, then killed him in one stroke. The lizard man asked if he could join the party, to wherever they were going. Keely grumbled, but didn't have much of a problem with it. He certainly wasn't paying for the additional wages, and the lizard man didn't disagree. On the way, the Saurian spoke of his escape, a slave to Noricum, and most of his village dead, or enslaved. He had nowhere to go. The group of 2 became 3. They continued on the road to Bucharest, the village going to be raided by the raiding party from Noricum, and also where the goal of the job was. Alexander, the whitesmith, had sent a message to the capital that he was stuck here due to the winter weather. Old, who was unable to move around in the cold temperatures, and had been put up with the dwarven farming village. 4 large families. Keely found Alexander sleeping at Felix Wiggins' house, a gnome, his wife, and more than enough dogs for the entire village in one place. The others set to work preparing the village for the raid. Each of the elders were informed, and the Ravenloft family convinced to use their carts to block off the entrances. Each elder would stand at the door and protect their families, whilst Keely protected the Wigginses. The party itself stood in the centre to grab the raiders' attention. Out of the human family, however, came a girl. Barely 18 and so short she was just over the usual height of halflings, as she stood at around 4 foot 8 inches. She came fully prepared to leave and had a sheepish look on her, as if trying to not look like she had burned down the outhouse whilst practicing magic. And so the party then took turns taking 2-hour watches, waiting for the raiding party. If not for that lucky arrow hitting the gnoll, they might have been none the wiser. Eventually, as dawn broke, torches appeared on the horizon, and the raiders arrived. The party let loose its first volley from the main tree in the centre of the village. As the gnolls approached from the north, they managed to damage them, but they reached the carts, and were now aware of the defence of the village. Of course, the carts used to block off the entrances to the village quickly backfired, becoming cover for the gnolls, who hid behind it as they waited. The paladin, the only one without a ranged weapon, ran into action and engaged the gnolls in combat 3v1. But another group of raiders came from the west. 2 humans and 3 gnolls came. One of them, a mage, instantly started burning down the Ravenloft house, whilst the gnolls engaged with Keely and the elder from the Ravenloft. The lizard man leapt into action and engaged the gnolls, cutting one down whilst the other 2 with crossbows swapped targets. Luckily for them, the paladin could hold their own, and whilst one of the gnolls smashed their weapons on a cart and the blade came back and slammed into their face, the paladin easily cut down another one, the last gnoll fleeing. The gnolls, however, were winning against the dwarves. and had made deep cuts into them, till out of the trees and snow came crossbow bolts, slamming into the gnolls respectively. A double natural 20 from the sorceress and rogue. The bolts thudded into the brains of the gnolls, taking them out as the mage turned onto those further afield. The lizardman jumped to strike the human fighter, but was proved to be too much for him and got downed after catching a strike on the man. The sorceress channeled the energy of their magic and caused a localized shriek into the head of the enemy mage, killing them from the inside. The paladin turned and challenged the human fighter to stand down. Angry and at a loss, the fighter refused. A simple raid on the village that shouldn't have had any defenders. All reason and point had been long forgotten. He ran towards the paladin, and in that moment the halfling leapt down from the tree and attached himself to the fighter, allowing the paladin and sorceress to have clean strikes, killing him while the halfling stabbed him in the back. The snow around the village was slowly turning red as bodies littered the streets. Dawn arrived completely. Our heroes battered and bruised, but alive. Mostly. Thank you for listening to the first episode of the Pathfinder Chronicles. I'm sure we're going to have plenty more stories from this team. Well, they don't exactly have a name yet, to be honest. Most of them haven't even introduced themselves in the first session. But I figured that going for a very cold open, pun intended, would make it more interesting for a group that I've never worked with before, but what a way to start, I guess. The lessons that actually come with these sessions will start in the next video. This one was just one to get us started on, so I hope I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye!